I'm Bill Harper. Welcome to the Head Smack Podcast.
You are listening to conversations with misfits, mavericks, and trailblazers.
Hey, welcome to the Head Smack Podcast. My name is Paul Pavolny, and I'm excited to have another misfit with me. I have Bill Harper. Bill and his team spend their time helping SMBs level the playing field against their larger competitors by combining brand story, marketing strategy, and a suite of curated AI tools into a program they refer to as the Challenger Brand Domination Plan.
That's
the
it.
work Bill, that's it. The work Bill has led has generated more than $2.5 billion in new revenue for his clients and helping over 500 businesses. Bill, how you doing, man? Welcome.
Very good, Paul. Thanks so much for having me.
A little bit of a tongue twister there. The Challenger Brand Domination Plan.
Yeah. So many brands have so much potential, but most people don't know the statistics. This is crazy. There are 33.6 million small and medium-sized businesses in the United States. Enterprise businesses only represent 1% of the businesses in the US, despite the fact that everybody chases them. And these businesses fail far more than they succeed. Out of the businesses in the US that will ever reach $1 million in top-line revenue is only 4%.
Wow.
That's it. And of the entire 33 million, 0.4% will ever hit $10 million in top-line revenue. So basically, even if you've got the world's best mousetrap, the odds are stacked against you unless you know how to position yourself in the market the right way so as to share your value. And I think online has done a real disservice in terms of like, hey, look, Kim Kardashian did it overnight, right? Like people have got these success stories that are completely unrealistic in their head. And so they go out and they're like, but my pen is better, and nobody buys it and they can't figure out why. And eventually they crumble. So our job is to help them do that. And with AI, now, for the first time ever, they truly, truly can. There is no barrier to production fee any longer.
Yeah.
And that's pretty exciting to be a part of.
Man, I want to dive into that even more and unwrap it and definitely talk about the Challenger Brand Domination Plan. It sounds like it needs the Challenger Brand Domination Plan.
That's exactly Sunday.
Right? So let me hear a little bit about your origin story, kind of where you started. You can go as far back as you want. How did you become the brand boss, and kind of what was that journey like?
Well, so brand boss is actually a misnomer. The notion behind brand boss was to make brand bosses. The idea was never that I was the brand boss. That wasn't supposed to be the point. And yet that's what it wound up becoming. Is everybody's like, oh, it's the brand boss. It's Phil's the brand boss. So our whole thing is to get out of the way. Businesses really understand how to make their own thing, but they don't know how to market their product. And that's where this concept came from. This is my 5th advertising agency. I've been in the business 36 years. I started at Darcy, DMB&B's flagship office in St. Louis, working on Anheuser-Busch cursorily and Blockbuster Video and music at the time and Enterprise Rent-A-Car and a bunch of stuff like that. And what I had a chance to see was how these businesses used the same strategic structure. Now, their solutions were different, but they had the same fundamental structures on how they built their messaging. So what I did was I fell in love with giving that same playbook to small businesses. If you can just get them to do it, what happens is that they scale very quickly. So that has become a lifelong passion, and I have followed it for the last 20 some years in owning businesses of my own. All of them focused on helping businesses scale. So that's what we do.
So how did you get into the agency world? Like, was that your first job out of college? Was that something you kind of fell into?
Yeah. So I went to school, as I think everybody does. I mean, the handful of people that I know that actually did the thing they went to college for is very, very small. So I went to school with a host of interesting things behind me. I was doing engineering. I was doing electronics. I was doing theater. I was doing art. I was writing. Like, I had a whole bunch of these disparate things that I just really enjoyed doing. And when I got to the time to make a decision, what I really was passionate about at the time was cars. And what I wanted to do was design sheet metal. I was a huge fan of Pininfarina and all that their organization had done to shape chassis. And so I went into mechanical engineering thinking that I was going to go do that. And my mother famously said, "You're about as much of a mechanical engineer as I am a toaster. But if you really, you've got the grades for it. And if you want to go tell the world that you're an engineer, go ahead." And she was absolutely right. So I left engineering school and went over to business school thinking, okay, well, the engineering thing was far too rigid for me. And I didn't particularly care for the detail of the math and the rest. I was like, yeah. So I went over to business thinking, okay, well, I'll just apply to business and that'll be great. And found them to be just as narrow as the engineers were, but just in a different way. And so I was literally walking around campus. This is sort of this famous story in my family, but I was walking around campus trying to figure out what I was going to call and tell my parents because I was going to change my major again. And I happened to walk through a building that I had never been through. And it was kismet. I was walking through it, and it was the visual communications building. And it was one of those times where they have the visiting guests that the students have been working on, and they make their presentation, and then the guests judge their thing. And I was like, I don't know, I was just thinking about stuff, and I walked by and I kind of caught somebody saying, well, if you want to sell this much by this time, you have to market this way and do this thing. And I literally sat down in the hallway outside this door and watched for 2.5 hours. And I stood up and I was like, I called my folks and I said, there's this thing called advertising. This is what I'm supposed to do with my life. Like, this is this combination of, here are these ideas that you have, and here's a strategy, and here's this insight into people, and here's. And it just, like, I just fell madly in love with it. And I was like, here, finally, I get to put all those Legos together. And I've just never looked back.
Wow. And so you never came to the branding space through creativity as far as being a designer. You came through it from a point of strategy.
Which is only funny because I'm an art director by trade. But yes, and I married a strategist. So the funny thing about it is that, and I credit this a lot to the fact that I had a foot in the structure of engineering and business prior to doing this other thing. But I can speak both languages, and I have been told consistently throughout my career by the people who hired me, both as an employee and as an agency, you make sense. Like I get this. Like, most people that are standing in front of me that are trying to explain why we're doing this are talking about how cool blue is this season or something, and you're not doing that. You're tying it back to, people aren't paying attention because of this thing. You have to trigger this thing this way with them to get them to buy in, which will ultimately make sales easier. Once they understand the mechanics of that, then the conversation gets smoother very quickly.
Right. And so when you discovered this by, sitting in the hallway, listening to this lecture or listening to this event, so you graduated from that. What was your first job?
First job was at a very small advertising agency in St. Louis called Hughes Advertising. And it was a great immersion into the world of marketing, because I was hired along with a copywriter and an account director for a piece of business they didn't get. And 6 months later, we were all marched into the business and fired on the same Friday. So
wow.
I got the whole start to finish immersion right off the bat. But what wound up coming out of that was great. And it was that I wound up having just enough experience at that point that Darcy considered me seriously. And so I wound up getting a position over there working initially on Blockbuster Video. And, that once I was in the hallways, like, they weren't going to get rid of me. Right. So at that point, that's where I lived at the agency. Like, anybody I could talk to, any project I could do, you need me to get cigarettes, no problem. Like, we were there until 3 a.m, like, filling in storyboards with benzene markers in a room with no windows. It didn't matter to me. I had to learn about the industry. And so I went nuts for it.
Yeah. I came into the industry. Well, when I went to college to study design and stuff, I mean, there were no computers when I was doing it. And so It was gouache, and it was, drawing stuff out. And if that had stayed like that, I don't know whether I'd be in the industry. I'm so thankful for computers. I'm so thankful they came along.
They were just coming in. When we went to Darcy, it was back so far that there was a computer lab and you had to get time on the computers. Like, nobody had a computer back then, which, today people are like scratching their head. Like, what do you mean nobody had a computer? They got a computer on their wrist, right? Like, they're not even thinking about it. But back in the day, you didn't have that, and all of your memory was on these huge SideQuest discs that you had to carry around that weighed 30 pounds and were completely unpredictable and would lose data all the time. And so like you protected them like, a mother hen. So yeah, the thing has come a long way. The guy that I spoke to that owned the corner office on our floor, the day I met him, was hand lettering Bodoni for the company Christmas card. And I walked in and I looked at him, and he was like sitting there lettering out. And I said, "What are you doing?" And I'd never seen anybody hand letter. And he looked at me like I had three heads. He goes, "I'm typesetting." I was like, "By hand?" He goes, "Well, yeah." It blew my mind. I was like, "What do you mean you're typesetting by hand?" He was like, I said, "Is that a particular font?" He goes, "Of course." Like he had, even in that short window where the original Macintosh, like the 1984 Macintosh, had been introduced and was just being adopted into these things, typesetting was going away. Like all of that, by the time I arrived at Darcy, he was 60 years old and was sitting over in a corner crafting a thing that he had done every day of his life for his entire career. And I had no appreciation. I mean, I had an immediate appreciation for it, but I had no clue that was even the case. I had never seen type that didn't come out of a type book, was a part of letterpress set, or was something on the computer. I didn't even know hand setting was even a thing. Yeah. So like, it was a fabulous education. I mean, he literally like said, "Take a seat." I was like, "I just got here. I don't even know where my office is." He's like, "That's fine. Sit down. Shut up." Yeah. And it was the beginning of a truly fantastic appreciation for the craft, the art of it all. And I think that's the piece that's so interesting now, is when creativity is a commodity, I can produce anything. Now, all that's left is the strategy and the idea. That's it. Everything else is, you're not going to pay more for it than you're going to pay for a pen, because you're not going to have to. Now, all that's left is the thinking. This is going to be really interesting time.
Yeah. Well, and I think, when you're having to do stuff by hand like that, and I remember letraset and rub down lettering and all of that stuff.
God, the nightmare that was, yeah.
That was bromide machines, all of that stuff. I remember in college, we were the same way. We had a computer lab, but nobody knew how to do anything on the computers because there wasn't instructions. There wasn't. And once you created something on the computer, there wasn't a way to get it off. Like there wasn't printers that could handle anything in color, or you had a little bzz, bzz,
you're like, there it is.
Tear off the dots. And so we would literally take photos of the screens with our artwork. But one of the things that is interesting is when you're having to do stuff by hand and when you're having to do stuff manually, is you approach it with a lot more strategy. And I think sometimes you can miss the strategy because you can get to creativity faster now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think people understand that strategy is the only thing that makes relevance possible. Like, okay, so OMG to Pine, right, caught everybody's attention for a minute. And actually, of the ones that are out there, if you compare that to Nutter Butter's goofy, like acid trip unhinged thing, Nutter Butter didn't really have a strategy behind it, or at least not one that I could decipher. Pine Sol actually does. Pine Sol's wacky, but it's unhinged with a purpose. Their whole thing is about, I cleaned so deep that it went past the surface cleaning. And I cleaned so deep, I don't have the fight with my neighbor anymore. Like, that's fun. That's playful. Yeah. There's something rooting it. Now, the art direction, not quite sure where that's going just yet, but that's okay. Nonetheless, OMG to Pine is something that's working for them and is getting some ongoing attention, and I think is going to drive sales in a short period of time. Now, whether they'll be able to carry that as a theme, the way Coca-Cola has carried joy, or, Apple has carried the contribution of the individual, or Nike has carried personal athleticism, I don't think so, because there's not enough meat on the bone for it. But in terms of flash in the pan, Gen Z, Gen Alpha type marketing messaging, it's actually fairly strategic, and more so than I have seen by a lot of folks that have come out and just done their, quick hit, one hit wonder stuff. That one's actually got a half a leg, and I think that it could carry itself forward a little bit.
So when it comes to the dominating, you have it on your T-shirt. Let's talk about the how a brand could dominate when they're entering a market that is already flooded.
Every brand can dominate the marketplace. Every single brand. Geico proved it. Geico has proven it. Liquid Death has proven it. Dollar Shave Club proved it. And here's the thing. The pain point that you focus on is the linchpin to the entire thing. I love Geico as a representative of this idea because it went in government employee insurance company. They were as niche as it gets. Mom and pop started business for a super niche, paid them, I forget what it was, top line, I don't know, 15 million or 20 million, I forget, whatever it was that they had achieved, was all the money in the world that that family needed. The group that bought them in the 90s, the new CEO that took over and pivoted them away from government focus to compete with category heavyweights like State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, Progressive. These groups had significant traction ahead of Geico.
Yeah.
And we're all the same. Serious. You're in good hands with Allstate. Like to the point of, And here comes Geico. And Geico is like, here's the deal. It's people. People hate insurance. People hate paying for insurance. People hate the entire insurance experience. Let's give them something to like. And that edutainment blend that they did, that fun, engaging thing that they decided to do, so disrupted the category that literally every single significant provider now follows them instead of them following. Dollar Shave Club did the same thing, just a little bit differently. They were like, okay, Schick and Gillette own the market, massive corporations, billions of dollars, but there's a group of people that's really pissed off about having to pay $20 for a razor. And they went to that group and were like, listen, you don't have to do that anymore. For $1 a month, I'm going to make sure that you've got something that cuts well, doesn't chip your face up like a disposable razor would, and it's going to work just fine. And for people like my dad, who was the kind of guy that drove across town to save 5 cents a gallon on gas, like those people came out of the woodwork in droves, millions of them, because finally somebody was speaking for them. They could rally behind it. Somebody was like, yeah, screw the big corporate guys. I want to be a part of that. Right up until they were bought by one of the big corporate guys. But nonetheless, to take on a market like that, it doesn't require a better product. Geico proved that. Many have proven this. It takes understanding your audience and being willing to say something different. And that's where most businesses struggle, because most businesses are run by finance or ops people. And finance and ops people believe in, I spend $1, I get a loaf of bread. This is safe. This is what people will understand. And they don't understand that they represent about 8% of the world's mindset. The rest of the world, the other 90+% of the universe, wants to laugh about something, wants to make it easy to remember, and wants to know that somebody's got their back because they don't feel like they have any power in the world. So that notion of most people leading lives of quiet desperation is like the key to it all. Once you understand that people don't feel like there's a representative for them, it suddenly changes your mindset from talking about how your pen is better to talking about solving a problem for them. And the minute you do that, there is literally no limit to what your business can do. I don't care if you're the local one-armed painter or you want to go against some of the biggest corporate giants in the world. If you adopt that structure, there is no limit to where you can go. There's no limit.
Well, and I think anytime that I've talked to a brand person and a brand strategy person, it's inevitable that we bring up Liquid Death. Mm-hmm. Because I think they nailed it. I think they, and it's hard not to use puns with them, but they entered a saturated market,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and they dominated in that market. Not their water wasn't better. There was nothing super special about their water, but it was through creating a story around it, right?
They are the least innovative company ever. They are. They put water in a can. Yeah. They have nothing innovative about their packaging structure. Cans have been around forever. Nothing special about their water. Flavored water exists. Regular water exists. Carbonated water exists. There is nothing about it except one thing. 50% of their leadership team came from one of the smartest advertising agencies on the planet. So their entire DNA from day one was, in order to get noticed, you must disrupt. And that's exactly what they did. And unlike most businesses who are terrified of anything that feels like it rocks the boat, these guys went in and rocked the boat from step one. So the whole notion was, if everybody else is pure, then we're going to focus on an unpure, not impure, you still got to drink it, but an unpure water brand. If everybody else is, Evian, Susie Chapstick, 5.0 cheerleader, middle daughter, child, loved by everybody thing, what's the older brother that stumbles in at 2:00 in the morning drunk on a Tuesday? What's that water brand? Yeah. And the minute that they did that, people were like, hell yeah. Like, thank you. It was so boring. It was so unbelievably boring. Thank you for giving us something to feel good about. And that $1.4 billion in valuation they hit the other day.
It's insane. It's insane. So for a company, for a smaller brand or a brand that's kind of trying to break through, talk us through the steps to get to making those kind of decisions. What are some things that a business can consider and start working on to get to the point where they think that way, if they've never thought that way before? Yeah.
So the first thing is mindset. Okay. Customers only look at things through one lens. What's in it for me? Period. Full stop. So you sitting around talking about how you've got the world's best hinge in your glasses isn't ever going to work. They will never connect the dots to, because of that hinge, then it solves X problem. You have to be more explicit than that. And you have to be interesting. So much is so repetitious. So you got to have that. Okay. So now the question is, all right, Bill, willing to be interesting, willing to say something different. What do I talk about? Okay, fair. So now let's go back and take a look at what it is that you do really well, that you can be profitable doing, that solves a pain point you can easily identify, that you can be profitable at. That's it. Like, it's super simple. So if I take a look back at my client list and I see that the thing that we solve really well is businesses feel stuck and we get them unstuck. Stop talking about anything else. That's the only thing you talk about. If you're a small business owner between 1 million and 5 million and you cannot hit 10 million, I have the answer for you. Stop feeling stuck. Period. Every single message you do ladders to that same idea. Every single sales deck you have ladders to that idea. Every promotional piece, every package, service bundle, product bundle, every bit of it goes to that one thing. And then go out and stand on that one button. And make sure when you do that, now you've got to take a look at the category. Chances are extremely in your favor that nobody is saying anything like that. But do your homework. Go make sure that you're not, running into the American auto market and saying, we've got the safest car in the world against Volvo that spent the last 80 years telling everybody that they have the safest car in the world, because you're not going to win that battle. So the whole idea is find the one thing that you're really good at and then say it differently. Now, the big argument that I hear back from businesses when I tell them this is, well, we do the same thing that other people do. Go back to insurance. Okay. Everything you need to know is right there, and international spies. I'll use that one in a second. So in insurance, Geico came out with 15% or more in 15 minutes or less. Okay. Little cute character that has a foreign accent. Nobody can quite identify which one it is, Australian or British. Nonetheless, sounds smart, sounds insightful, talks about two things that are important: my time and my money. Okay. Now, Progressive comes out and Progressive goes, shit, Geico already took time and money. What else can we do? Okay, how about this? How about everybody hates insurance? So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we are at your service. That's the whole point of the brand. The entire point of the brand is we only breathe. We only get up in the morning to serve you. Flow. Flow is there to say, doesn't matter what you're talking about, what you're doing, we're here to serve you, even when it's ridiculous. Now, Allstate comes along and takes a look and is like, shit, Geico took time and money. Those guys have customer service. What are we going to do? Well, let's bring the idea of how does life throw you curveballs? Nobody has done that yet. So let's own this idea of mayhem. We're going to talk about how when birds poop on your car, it ruins the paint job. And we're going to talk
Yeah.
about I'm a 15-year-old and I just found out that my best friend kissed my boyfriend and now I'm a compromised driver, not paying any attention. I'm crashing into everything. They humanized that mayhem issue. And so each one of them, farmers did, we know a few things because we've seen a few things. Like they played off of experience in a fun way. Each one of them eked out one turf, one island of story, and they laddered every single thing they did to it. They all sell the exact same thing.
Right.
Same thing with Austin Powers, Ethan Hunt, James Bond, and Jason Bourne. They are all just international spies. But the story, the way they tell the story, what they stand for, the rest of it is why some people say, I'm not really a Mission Impossible person. I'm more like a James Bond guy. And the reason why is because of the way the stories are told, but they're the exact same product.
Right.
So businesses have to understand that their product is going to be commoditized, even if it's like, think how fast the AI groups became commoditized, right? It was like one person popped up and then it was like, tink, 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 tink. And the thing became leveled. You got to stand for something. The more you stand for not being about your product, the faster you're going to grow.
So talk about that was so good. Talk about, we talked about liquid death, and, people say, I want to be the next liquid death, or I want that kind of a move. But liquid death really didn't solve a problem that people were begging to solve. It doesn't seem like they almost created a solution that people didn't know they needed. And I think other companies do that as well, right? Or am I reading it wrong? I don't know their history is that well.
Well, the enemy for liquid death is boredom. The enemy for liquid death is boring, right? It's, I want to drink something cool. Water isn't cool. So the whole thing was that. Now, keep in mind that there's a whole corporate thing that makes people feel good about them behind the scenes, right? Liquid death actually exists. The reason that they chose the aluminum can is because they're against the plastic problem in the world, right? They know that there's an entire, flotilla of used plastic in the ocean the size of Texas, and they don't want to see that get any bigger. So their whole thing was, how can we fund the plastic problem? So they used water to be able to do it. But if they had gone out and said, we're against plastic, drink our aluminum can water, nobody would have bought it. So Their whole thing was like, look, what's the problem with drinking water? Why don't people drink more water? Well, when you go to a party and everybody else is drinking a beer, the last thing you want to do is drink water out of a plastic bottle because it's out of sync with what's happening around you. So they made it look cool enough to be a beer replacement. So their whole thing was about boredom or boring or not cool, or you could call it whatever set of words you want, but it's the same structure. I feel good about holding it in my hand, and that has led them to something. So the problem is not always, I can't get my TPS reports done, and in fact, it's never that. This is the other big thing that's really hard for people to understand. Their product is completely irrelevant. Just like we are irrelevant to our customers. They only care about us because they see us as a potential path to the success that they want to have. So it's like nobody buys software because the software is new. They buy software because their boss is on their back because they can't get their reports done on time. The software promises to do the reports in half the time. Therefore, the person is motivated to buy the software. That's how it works. That's how it really works. And so, when people come out and they're like, we made better software, it's like, so what? Nobody cares about the software. They only care about the outcome. If the software is successful in providing the outcome that was desired, which is really changing my life for the better, then it works. And so I think Liquid Death did that on a number of fronts. I think that they made it fun to drink water, which was really hard because water wasn't fun. Water was boring as hell. They made it something that could be done in social activities. So they solved that problem by making it cool to hold. So, they just kind of went down the checklist and were like, why don't people drink water? Well, they don't drink it for this and this and this and this. And they were like, okay, if we're cool like this, then we solve that problem and more people drink water because it's cool to drink. And I think that thing is where they really hung their hat strategically.
So when somebody comes to you, and they want to be a challenger brand. They want to stand out. Maybe they're a chiropractor, maybe they're some sort of a home services industry type person. What are some of the tools that you first whip out to help them to get to that place that you help them to maybe even switch their mindset about what they're doing?
We have a presentation that we do called Brand Education that everybody just loves. I have been asked more times than I can count, please put this up online and sell it so that people can share it and understand it. But in essence, it's exactly that. It shows them how they can get there. There's a tow truck story that I tell that really gets people over the hump. And it's, do you want me to share it real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So here's how this all came to be. I was on my way to a meeting with a big healthcare company, and there were a bunch of people in the room. And I had the presentation, but I mean, it was like several levels. Like we had a senior VP and we had like assistants, right? Like we had this massive thing. And I needed to get everybody in the room on the same page. So we had this little agency introduction thing that was, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes long, whatever. But as I was on my way to the thing, I was like, I really need them to feel what it means to be marketed to the wrong way. Like they need to understand it. So I walked in, I sat down and I said, everybody waited for the senior VP to come in, and he came in and sat down and I said, all right, you have two choices. I can either give you this really quick 15-minute introduction to the agency, which is good. We only have 2 slides that are about us, chuckle. Or I can tell you a 90-second story about a tow truck that will instantly unify everybody about the real purpose of brand in a way that you'll never forget another day in your life. Which do you want? And he was like, well, I'll do the story. And so I said, all right, so here's the story. Story is that you have been planning for something for a while. Don't know what it is, don't care. Biggest sales event, you're emceeing your parents' 50th wedding anniversary, doesn't matter. But today's the day. And you get up and you're in your Sunday best and you've got your note cards or your presentation or whatever, and you're all excited. And you sit down in your car in your garage, you look at your watch and you're feeling great because it's only a 30-minute drive to get there and you've got an hour to do it. So you're going to have a 30-minute cushion when you get there. Things are good. But as you roll up the door, you see that it's raining and sleeting and nasty outside. And it's like, okay, whatever. And as you pull onto the highway, the worst possible thing happens. You pop a flat. Now, normally you'd get out and fix it, but you're in your Sunday best. You're on your way to this thing. It's raining cats and dogs. So you decide to call the tow truck. Now, it takes the tow truck driver 15 minutes to get there before they've done any work, cutting in your safety cushion by half. Person walks up, knocks on the glass. Did you order a tow truck? Yeah. You say, looking at your watch. I did. You made the right decision calling our towing company. Our towing company has been in business longer than any other towing company in the world. We have a more rigorous hiring process than anybody else. And in fact, we have been awarded more times than anybody else for that process. Now, when you take a look back at that truck, nobody else has that truck, just us. We did a special thing that's proprietary with Mack Truck to make sure that your second biggest investment, your car, would always be safe. Now, the tires on that are where it's really special. We worked with Michelin to make a special polymer that would never slide in the rain. What are you thinking about this entire time that this idiot is talking? Shut up and fix my tire, right? Now, same driver, same truck, same service, same everything. Only this time he knocks on the glass and says, knock, knock, knock. Did you order a truck? Yeah. You say, I did. Great. Our motto is on the road in 10 minutes or less. We know you've got things to do. Sit tight. Who are you going to avoid like the plague? And who are you going to tell every friend about? Yeah. Same company. They just don't understand that impact is so profound. The second driver is Nike, Apple, Disney, Dollar Shave Club. They position their messaging through the lens of what's important to the person hearing it. The first is the 99% of businesses that are out there talking about their better clicker on their pen. Nobody cares, but They just don't believe it. They're inside their own sales swirl and echo chamber, and they're like, man, my glasses are so good, or this shirt is so awesome, or my pens are better than anybody else. And that's all that they want to talk about. So step one is seeing the problem for what it is, because when you jump to tactics before you address that, then it becomes all subjective. I don't know if I like that idea. It's not about what you like. It's about whether they will respond to it. That's what you're after. And for most business owners, that is radical shifting in thought. I thought it was about the better product. No, people buy shitty McDonald's hamburgers every day of the week. Five Guys should be trouncing them. Shake Shack should be trouncing them. But It's good enough. Like I know I can go there and I can get a burger and fries right now, on any corner in any city, anywhere in the United States, and it's good enough. That's how people buy. They buy the products they like the best, not the best products. And that notion is so hard for business owners to wrap their head around. They just can't quite choke it down. Even when they drive their BMWs and they wear their Ferragamo shoes and they're wearing a Rolex or an Omega watch, they are absolute victims of it, but they don't recognize it in their own behavior.
Man, that is so good. And so, for somebody, that's step one, of course, but that's a huge step for a lot of people. And you shared some extreme value.
It's the only step that matters too. That's the thing. Like the rest of the dominoes fall easy. Good luck getting domino 1 over.
Right. And often when I've talked to clients as well, it's like finding that first domino. Like, what's the first domino that you need to knock down to make this all kind of fall into place? So because that is such a huge step, and it's the first step and it's the biggest step, and it's the one that you have to spend the most time wrestling with and not move on from that into colors and logos and websites and any of that stuff. So let's talk about that tool set even more. That's a big tool. What are some things that you use when you come to that point that you've got to wrestle? Because that's a hard thing to wrestle with, because we want to talk about, hey, you like this new feature on this new pen, you like the pen has 4 colors on it,
right,
and
colors,
all of that.
Right.
They want to talk about that. They're wired to talk about that because they're so proud of that. They're so excited about that. How do you chip away at that?
I must draw this 30 times a day. I should just make it a permanent one. Okay, so here's how it works. This is the easiest tool that I can give you on this. Okay, this is how the world works. Up at the top, you have your one big idea. Volvo is safe. How are we safe? We are safe in 3 ways. We know more about crash test dummies. We know more about crumple zones, and we invented the 3-point harness, whatever. Okay? That is your entire sales argument right here. This is what we do. Here's why we do it. And here are the ways that we make it real. Period. Full stop. That is your entire elevator pitch. All the stuff you want to talk about, our history, the jobs we do, our flexibility, our great training, all that stuff comes later. That's all step 2. Step 1 is I saw them across the crowded room. My heart went pitter-pat. Why? That's it. That emotional thing is so critical because people buy emotionally and justify logically. I see the Harley. I want the Harley. I tell myself a story about how my weekends would be so much better if I had the Harley. And that emotional conduit is what makes me buy. It isn't because the pistons are bigger or it has 4 more horsepower than a Honda or whatever. Like, that's not what does it. So the whole thing is to get them to see through hook or crook. One of my favorite ways to do it is to say, please give me your elevator pitch. And then I stop them somewhere around 2 minutes. Your elevator pitch is 20 seconds or less. It answers 3 questions. What are you? Why do you exist? Ergo, what problem do you solve? And how are you unique? Full stop. That's it. We've all been to cocktail parties, networking events where you make the mistake of asking that one prolific person, what do you do? And then 15 minutes later, they're just tying up their life story and this like thing that you don't care about. And you can't wait to get away from them. The whole point of an elevator pitch is to say, we are this, that does this, and this is how we're unique. They then get the opportunity to do what they really want to do, which is ask questions about their scenario. What people don't get about the elevator pitch is you don't start selling until they start talking. So shut up. That's the point. Get out of your own way. So they need to know just enough information to begin to pull at the pieces and say, hey, this is what's actually interesting to me, or that thing is interesting to me. Until you're there, you're just talking. You're not selling.
Yeah. And so with, you mentioned about being unique, and definitely, some of the brands that we've talked about are unique. Are there tools that you use or systems or processes that helps people find that uniqueness, that helps them get to that point where they've found that secret sauce?
Well, first thing that they have to understand, after all the other first things that I gave them, but at this level, the first thing that they have to understand fundamentally is that there is no right answer. Geico was not right in choosing 15% or more for 15 minutes or in 15 minutes or less. They simply decided that that was the thing that they wanted to be known for. And this is where I think all the ROAS and A/B testing stuff is like confuse the hell out of people. A/B testing is not a substitute for intended strategy, right? If you want to get somewhere, Eddie Murphy did not go around asking people if it was okay that he become the funniest man alive. He just went, fuck it, I'm doing it. Like that was his whole thing was that's my destination. That's what I want to be known for. That's where I'm going to go. He then A/B tested the jokes he told.
Yeah.
Was this the best delivery? Did I get a better laugh here? That's where he used it. So when I take a look at a small group, like let's say a painter, right? And I sit down and I say, okay, let's take a look at the most obvious things that are pain points in your industry. People going over budget, people not showing up on time, people making a mess, like get fundamentally granular about the things that are there. Now, which one of them don't you do already naturally? Well, God, I hate being late. Full stop. Great. You hate being late, then your guarantee is if we're late, you don't pay a dime. We will always be there when we say we will, or you don't pay for the day, period. Now, that for them is incredibly hard to wrap their head around. They're like, it can't be that easy. And it's like, it's not that easy. It's just now you have to fulfill on that promise, which is where it's going to get super difficult.
Right.
Your team has to be there. There can't be any, we're just going to be 5 minutes. It can't be like that. Your team has to be geared to say, we told the client 8 a.m. That means you're there at 7:45, sipping coffee in the van until the hour happens. So that if there's an accident, if there's a train wreck, if there's a whatever, it doesn't matter. You got there, you are there on time, or they don't pay. So, it's identifying a thing that you already believe in, that you can be profitable doing, that you feel confident that you can deliver consistently. Then we lean on it. And there's so much opportunity in the world that nobody has to worry about, well, what if? Like when you're talking about regional businesses or local businesses in particular, it doesn't matter. There's so many people that you don't have to worry about it. Somebody called me the other day. They were like, "Oh my God, you have 165,000 followers on TikTok." And I go, "It's not even a rounding error. There's 380 million people in the United States alone. I'm talking to a global audience of 8 billion. I don't even matter. Nobody sees me." So it's just, you have to have perspective and you have to have an understanding of that. And then you have to figure out, like, I am okay supporting this one idea because I really believe in it. And then you put your shoulder behind it.
That is so good. And so, one of the things that, and I first got introduced to you through TikTok, and I love your content on there. And
oh, thanks.
That's why I reached out to you. One of the things that I think you talked about recently is about positioning, or kind of what I call a brandscape. I think you had a different name for it, where you kind of find a way to differentiate yourself through the axes. Do you want to talk about that for a moment?
Yeah. So first off, every generation insists on renaming everything. I saw somebody today that said that the marketing funnel was dead, that instead it's all about gravity. And I just laughed out loud. I was like, you idiot. You've just made it harder on yourself to sell, because now you have to unsell the funnel to sell this new notion that's exactly like the funnel, just with a new name. But nonetheless, they don't know that yet because they're still young. So positioning in this respect is all about finding, and if you like this, it's a horrible book, but if you like this Blue Water book or Blue Ocean or whatever in the hell it was called, the whole notion is that the world exists in a couple of axes. So it's like, I don't know, are they fun and playful, or are they serious, and are they about price, or are they about service? I don't know, something like that. So you've got this axis of whatever two contrasting scales that you want, and then you take your competitive set and you map them. Okay, so when I think about my competitor that's this, are they about cost? Are they about time? Are they about whatever? Like, what quadrant do they sit in? Wherever the majority of your competitors are, you want to be the total opposite. You want to say, okay, that's already in the market and people have that option all the time. What could I do to go the other direction? And I think that's exactly what Liquid Death did. Liquid Death said, which ones are focused on purity, which ones are playful, which ones are price conscious. Like they did kind of a simple grid like that. Everybody was over on purity and price. Discount, pure water. So they were like, okay, premium and funny and, like impure. unpure, whatever. There was nobody else over there. So it made perfect sense. It was like, this entire quadrant belongs to us. Nobody else is over here. And so when they went out, there was no competition. Who are they competing with? That's the beauty of the thing. And people are like, well, they're competing with other water companies. Not really. No, they're competing with soda. They're competing with beer. They've elevated themselves to where they're not even a consideration on the waterfront anymore. Now they're saying, you don't have to drink a beer at a party. We got you. You can drink water and feel perfectly good about it.
Yeah, and so they created they dominated in an area that nobody else. It was dominated in an area of one, because they created this whole new category for themselves because they did that exercise, whether literally or mentally, but they kind of found that spot that just allowed them to excel in it. And so, are there any other tools that you like to whip out? We've talked about so many good ones, and I want to make sure that we don't miss any, especially, something very practical that, like I said, a chiropractor or a local service person or whatever can start looking at, that they can say, okay, I need to start thinking about this, or I need to implement this. Are there any other tools that you like to share?
The big one is the minute that you talk about yourself, throw it out. And it's just so simple, but I'll have people that will take a look at my TikTok stuff and they'll hear it and they'll write it down and they'll go, oh, Bill, what we're really good at is making the world's best pen. And I'll go, nope, nope, throw it away. A guy sent me this big, long email the other day. I get these all the time. It was like, hey, man, I really love your work. I tried to do this thing. Here's what I came up with. And it's all about them. They might as well be standing in front of a mirror. Oh, my gosh, my hair looks so nice. And my ears are just right. And I've got a pretty smile. And I'm like, nope, throw it away. Burn it. Just burn it. In fact, don't burn it. Put it in a frame and hang it over your desk with a big sign on it that says, never to do again. And use it as a touch plate, like, Notre Dame does when they're going out on the field. Like, everybody touch this every day before you go anywhere. Don't ever do that. We are so irrelevant. We're Stan, what was his name? Turnpike or whatever, the guy on in Harry Potter that drives the night bus. Like, that's it. That's our only role. Our only role is to get you on and off the bus. Shunpike. There we go. So for the Harry Potter fans that are going to send in stuff and be like, Harper, man, get it together. And Shunpike. All right. So that's it, though. That's the sum total of us is we're the guide. That's it. You're the Sherpa on Mount Marketing. Like, that's it on the road to growth. Other than that, they don't care. They're not going to trust you. They don't want to hear about it. Like, they don't want to know about your kids. They don't want to know about your hit. Like, they don't care. Like, they so don't care. All they care about is, can I use what you just told me to change my circumstance for the better? Period. End of story. So the minute you talk about yourself, like, okay, for a show of audience for the listeners here, who wants to hear more about my path to becoming an advertising person? Who wants to hear more about my agency? Who wants to hear more about our special processes? You don't. There's not a single hand up. And the one that is in the back that's up is Mom. Hi, Mom. Nobody else cares. Like, nobody else cares. And so don't talk about it. Only talk about, this is the problem. Look how well we understand the problem. This is how you solve the problem. We can help you get to a point where you solve the problem. That's it. After that, nobody cares about the hammer and nail once the picture's up on the wall. They only need the hammer and nail to achieve that goal. Once that goal is done, the hammer and nail disappear into irrelevance again.
Right. And I think making a bombastic promise and then keeping it is just so critical. And, that's where you win is. And I think a lot of brands that do that, they're the ones that are dominating in a great way, because they make a bombastic promise and then they keep it. And if you're going to make a bombastic promise, definitely keep it. Don't just make it and then, say, well, 15 minutes, we'll do this, or 10 minutes we'll do that, or 1 hour you get this, and then don't keep it, because then you're going to fail anyway. But look at ways.
Remember that building your success is exactly like going to the gym. There is no shortcut. I don't know. Like you're talking about a group of people that everybody knows because they're so rare, right? These people that had these overnight successes, they are so rare that we know them all. because they just happen to hit with the exact right message at the exact right moment, with the exact right offering, with the exact right thing. The sun, the moon, the stars, the dirt, the sand was all aligned. And for that brief horizon moment where everything lined up, they just happened to say the right thing at the right moment. They are so rare. It's just like, don't even it's an anomaly. It's not real.
Right.
So
Right.
if you are going to build your success, overnight success is 10 to 12 years, full stop. And you got to look at it as going to the gym. Don't feel like going to the gym? Too bad, go. Don't feel like going to the gym? Too bad, go. Because you can't tell what day it's going to work. But I know that the minute you stop going to the gym, it's never going to work. So the whole thing is you got to get up and build and build and build until you are so sick of building you can't stand it anymore. But that's the only way that it works. And that's how it works for everybody.
Well, and one of the things that has really changed the industry, and you talk about this as well, is AI. And so, as an agency, what was your first reaction to AI? Because I talked to one agency person at one point, and they were asked by a potential client, "So, how do you guys use AI?" And they were like, "We don't use AI." And when he told me that, I was like, "Whoa, that was the wrong answer," And so, what was your first reaction to AI,
The
and how do you
adoption
feel
was
about it now?
big. Yeah, okay, so when AI first came out, remember it wasn't art first. The first thing that came out was GPT, and what everybody was doing was they were hitting a button to make copy. And
Right.
my reaction to that was do it faster. My entire thing was I want every one of my clients' competitors to do that every day, because it's going to lead you to a common denominator, because that's how large language models work. It wants the common denominator. It says this is what worked best for everybody, so everybody do this, which absolutely guarantees that you will be seen as a commodity. So in my opinion, I was like, go. Adopt it, do dumb shit. Me personally, I'm going to wrap my clients up in bubble wrap, but for the rest of you idiots, go right ahead. Now, what happened after that was really interesting because of how fast it happened.
Right.
All of a sudden, image manipulation happened. Started off with Photoshop and the generative fill, then all of a sudden Discord, then all of a sudden Midjourney, then, right? And it was tip, tip, tip. And as those dominoes tipped, you might remember that initially the first concern for everybody was copyright infringement. And so the big agencies, the BBDOs and the DDB Needhams, and I don't know that it was either of those, but so, don't hold me legally, but one of the big groups I remember was famous, and it was one of the Ds, came out and was like, here's a letter to our entire staff. You may not use artificially created imagery in anything until we sort this out, because we have no idea what the liability is. Once that problem was solved, then it became a way to express an idea faster. That was what happened the next 2 weeks was, oh my gosh, I have this idea for a client where people are floating in the clouds and there's Snickers bars falling around them and Game Boy joysticks and whatever. And I need a way to show that to the client. Hey, can you give me a person floating in a cloud where beer and joysticks and TV remotes are floating around them? And AI was like, yeah, sure. How about this? And it was like, oh, okay. So that happened. And then it became what it is now, right? VO came out, Midjourney stepped up, Sora stepped up, and all of a sudden video creation, true production happened. Now, you still don't have high res. You still can't make anything into a billboard out of it. You can't make anything into certain types of print executions or whatever. There's just not enough resolution there yet. But it's coming, and it'll be here in 6 months, right? So now all of a sudden, you're a fool not to use it, because it has turned creativity, production of creativity, into a commodity. I no longer am bound by any production budget so long as I know how to use the tool.
Right.
So once that happened, now it pivoted 180 degrees. Now agencies were stupid not for using it. Now on the copy front, I still really worry about it. A lot of people are using it to think for themselves, and that's dumb. And it will never build you a proper strategy. It will never have an insightful moment. It will never see opportunity between the cracks of what everybody else is doing. AI is not built that way fundamentally. It is built to look for commonality, not individual concept. Like it's not looking for different that way.
Right.
So when
Right.
you ask it to do that, it fumbles the ball a lot. But I think in terms of a creative tool, helping to make a script punchier, helping to fill a blank page with something that you can hate so that you can start the process faster, iterating on something you've already created that is strategically sound so that you have other options you might not have considered statistically. All of those kinds of things. And the graphic side of it. I mean, did you see the IKEA commercial that came out the other day with the box that explodes into a bedroom? So
No, I
it's an
haven't seen it.
empty room with an IKEA box in the center. The box jumps up and down once or twice and pops open, and an entire bedroom suite pops out of it, including at the very end the blanket comforter that lands on the perfect bed. And the room is completely perfect. Now, what was really surprising about that was, and this is what I love about the movement, people are getting so excited about what they can do that they're sharing the prompts behind it, which is highly accelerating the education curve. That wasn't so much the case in the beginning. People were really hiding all of that because they were like, well, I don't want other people to be able to do it. But now it's gone the other way. So this guy gave literally a timestamp by timestamp breakdown of how they made this thing happen. And people immediately began iterating on it. Well, what if it was a rock concert in a box? What if it was a business success in a box? What if it was a party in a box? So they were all iterating on the prompt, and it became a meme of sorts in its own way, because all of a sudden everybody was like, hey, cool, check this out. Da-da-da-da-da, boom. And people were like, oh, wow, that's really fun. Oh, that's really playful. And so that started being like a thing. So AI is radically changing this, but what it's done, as I was saying in the very beginning, is it's put all the emphasis now on what is your strategy and what are you trying to say and who are you saying it to, because now you're no longer constrained by the production costs that the big guys had the advantage. Where they're going to have the advantage now is deeper pockets for wider media, but everything else has been leveled.
Yeah. Well, and I think, while AI, and I use it daily and I love it for what it does well, somebody once said that it gives you the best average answers. It's not going to give you anything like it's not going to suggest to you that you do a liquid death. Like it's going to give you average answers. But, one of the things that is truly amazing is that, a lot of the stuff that people are creating is, we're creating it for a medium that doesn't even need to be high resolution anymore. We're creating it for phones, we're creating it for computers, and so there's a lot of people that I've seen creating ads using things like VO and stuff that is truly amazing. But it's not going to give you that strategy that a creative agency or a creative strategist is going to give you. It's going to give you a really good average answer when it comes to copy a lot of times, is what I'm finding now.
Maybe and I think people are finding unique ways to use it too. Are you familiar with the whole Mia Zulu thing?
Yes, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So Mia Zulu is one of the first, not the first, but she's one of the first all AI influencers. She doesn't exist. So she's
the one that was at the British Open or something like that?
At Wimbledon or whatever, right? So she supposedly was seated there with 3 kneecaps, by the way, but who's counting? And which is part of the charming bit right now about this whole thing. But I think people are going to find new ways to create influence. People are going to find new ways of communicating. People are going to find a lot of things that are going to be very different. And when the voice comes into this is the piece I don't think people are really thinking about yet. Custom GPT as an answer set, we've been building a Brand Boss GPT because for small businesses, students, people that want to try to understand that want to access but can't access it, for X dollars a month, to be able to talk to the team at Brand Boss and be able to say, hey, I really need an elevator pitch, or I really need to be able to think about a strategy this way, or how would you position this, that, or the other? You can be putting those things into place and rolling them out as tools. So, there's so many different ways that people are going to be using this. And when voice gets into this, it's going to be nuts, because when voice gets into it, you're not going to look at a screen anymore unless you just want to. I don't know if you've played at all with the AI, basically Siri. I don't even know what to call her. I call her G. But the AI engagement tool now that's vocal, it embarrassed Amazon. Like Alexa is a joke. Alexa is like a 2-year-old that can barely tie their shoelaces. And this GPT thing, once they engage it, and I know everybody's doing that right now with N8N, they're doing it, or they're creating Band-Aid fixes because the system doesn't allow it to do it yet. The minute that thing can do agentic work, and then the next step will be small robots that do physical labor that are attached to the agentic. Everything changes. Literally every single thing changes. You won't have to go anywhere. You won't have to do anything the same way. It'll be so automated, and it's going to be crazy. Like, I just want to have popcorn and a safe seat because it's going to be really nuts. And I don't think people really get that yet. Like, I think they're just starting to cotton on to what kind of a change this is.
Yeah.
This is going to be massive.
Yeah.
Massive. Nothing we know 10 years from now will be the same.
Right.
Nothing.
And I like to tell people that I'm both thrilled and terrified at the same time, because it's now it's like we're playing with a lion cub, and we know that this lion's going to grow and it could devour us, but right now we're having fun. We're having fun playing with the lion cub.
Cute. Yeah, it's cute. And it rolls over, right? And then it's going to be hungry, right?
Right. But going back to what your T-shirt says and what we started off talking about, I think for small business owners that might be listening to this, they're excited about AI and what it can do, and it can do stuff for them. But just keep in mind, it's going to give you the best of average. If you want to dominate, if you want to differentiate, you're still going to have to go deep in strategy. And I think for a lot of what you shared today is that stuff that they need to go deep into. And so if somebody wants to get a hold of you, if somebody's like, man, I need to work with Bill, I need to, get myself to a place where I'm the challenger brand, I want to dominate. What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, there's a ton of free work that's available on TikTok and Instagram at Brand Boss HQ. Right. If you want to take a look at our online education course, or if you want to work with us directly as an agency, then you can go to brandbosshq.com. But all of our social handles are at brandbosshq, so we're super easy to find. And our web address has a pretty specific outlay of the different ways that we work with groups, all of which are packaged. So it makes it super easy for everybody.
That's so awesome, man. Well, I usually like to end this by asking a question of, if what's one question or one head smack that you'd like to share that I didn't ask you about?
Let's see. I think the biggest one is that you have to divorce yourself of what is and focus on what if. I think if more people would release protecting what they've already done so that they can get the thing that they want, they would achieve it a lot more often.
That's so good. Bill, this has been an amazing conversation, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing so much value. I think this is going to be one of those episodes that people are going to need to go back and listen to it and execute and wrestle with, and like you said, put stuff on the wall and say, never do this. And because Bill said so. So much value. Thank you so much for being on, man.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I really appreciate it. Anytime.
You are listening to Conversations with Misfits, Mavericks, and Trailblazers.